So the early 80s was a bit of a crap time for the performance car and the sports car. The world was just coming out of the oil crisis, and technological innovation was just wasn't there. The cars weren't developed, manufacturers couldn't develop them. But then a rule change occurred in motorsport that would bring about one of the most extraordinary eras of technological development in not only race cars but road cars. And this car here, the car we're driving today, is the most advanced of them all. It's the Porsche 959.
So what happened in motorsport to inspire the 959? Well, it was the creation of the Group B category. Group B was created to inspire technological innovation that had lagged behind as R&D budgets were cut during the oil crisis. Group B, in stark contrast to motorsport today, was all about technological freedom. All manufacturers had to do was to create 200 road cars, and that was pretty much it. Rally cars would later become the most famous Group B machines, but the category was created for race cars too, and Porsche believed at the time that race cars were more informative than rally cars in terms of road car development, which was ironic as the 959's only significant motorsport success was on the rally stages of the Paris-Dakar.
But Porsche, being Porsche, had another motivation, and that was the 911, which towards the end of the 70s looked like it was going to be removed from the Porsche range and replaced by the 928. Well, customers kept buying 911s, so Porsche thought, well, let's use Group B to do the ultimate version of a 911 and also to build a car that would inspire the next generation of 911s.
The 959 project was given the green light in January 1983, then just 9 months later the amazing Group B concept was revealed for the first time.
And this concept blew people's minds. It was this incredibly shapely 911, exaggerated and amplified by a wonderful pearl paint job. This concept, this Group B concept, the world had never seen anything like it. Like I said at the time, supercars were still steel chassis, steel bodies, carburetors, no ABS. And Porsche came along with a concept that promised four-wheel drive, computer-controlled suspension. It was a spaceship, it wasn't a car. Now, Porsche embarked on the development of this car straight after that show in Frankfurt, but such was its complexities that it would take another 2.5 years before it was production ready. Sadly, Group B had been banned by the time this car was ready for production, but Porsche persisted. They had order books that were full. They would eventually sell 349 959s. And they'd sell them for around £150,000 each. And the bosses of Porsche went on record a few years later saying that it cost them around £350,000 each to make. So the losses were unbelievable. The engine would retain a flat six configuration, but the capacity was significantly smaller than in the 3.2 911 road car. This was 2.85 litres, which was a quirk of the rules. It was allowed to have a lower capacity if it was turbocharged. Now, this engine, which can trace its roots back to the fantastic Moby Dick race cars of the late 70s, had some amazing features. Titanium conrods, sequential turbos, and perhaps most remarkably of all, 4-valve heads. But the 4-valve heads created a bit of a problem for Porsche because they would require extra cooling. And as we all know, flat six Porsche engines, air-cooled up until then, the only way really to generate the cooling that the heads required was to switch to water cooling. And back then at Porsche, there were some real political and philosophical objections to having water cooling in a flat six engine. However, the compromise that was eventually reached was that the heads would be water cooled, but the block would be air cooled.
And the stats? Around 450 brake horsepower, a top speed of 195 miles an hour or 197 for the rare sport model, and 0 to 60 in around 3.7 seconds.
Now, apparently the best way to get maximum acceleration out of this car is to run it at 7,000 RPM and drop the clutch in first gear. We're not going to try that, obviously, but that horribly fierce way, brutal way, yielded those extraordinary performance figures that would ultimately inspire Enzo Ferrari to attempt to build a better car, a faster car in the F40. And the F40 would come along, and it was quicker. Not much, tiny bit quicker. But what the 959 always had is it had a leather interior, had air conditioning, had a radio, and yet it would do 200 miles an hour and 0 to 60 in around 3.5 seconds. And all of this in the mid-80s, 30 years ago. Just incredible. We've mentioned the engine, but the body is very special on this car. It wasn't really designed for aesthetics, but it was very much shaped by the wind. 0.31 drag coefficient, which when you consider how much air is being pushed through the body with all the vents, that's a really impressive number. And the panels, well, a really complex cocktail of polyurethanes and Kevlars and fiberglass, all sorts of stuff that had to be baked and cured. The manufacturing into this car, that's where the money went. That's why there was such a colossal loss on each car. But it allowed Porsche to do things that they had never done before with a road car. This car hasn't got any rain gutters. The way that the windscreen is kind of blended into the body, that had never been done before. There's a roll cage in here, which you would never know. Really clever stuff under the skin that you can't see. And the suspension. Again, let's remember this is the mid-80s. This car has got a variable ride height with a rotary dial down there to adjust. Had 8 dampers, all hydraulically connected. The transmission, variable torque, 40, 60 majority of the time, but up to around 250 Newton meters of torque. It could put 100% at the front axle. Again, these features we wouldn't see again for years and years and years. So run flat tyres, magnesium hollow spoke alloy wheels, tyre pressure monitoring system. It's all there. Gearbox, 6-speed manual. I can't find another car that had a 6-speed manual before the Porsche 959. And the brakes, well, the discs don't look particularly impressive today. But they had ABS. Very early modern car with ABS brakes. And according to sources in the factory, this car had better braking and efficiency than the mighty 917 race car. This is a road car. So how does it feel today, after nearly 30 years? It feels great, I have to say. I mean, it's fast. And that second turbo comes in. There. You feel that? There you go. Well, this one's got 585 horsepower and weighs around 1350 kilos. So it's got as much performance as most modern day supercars. This car is more significant than being the father of the modern supercar. I think this is the father of the modern car, full stop. If you think about it, it's got 4-wheel drive, it's got adaptive damping, adjustable ride height, it's got ABS. This is all the stuff that we've got in our road cars today. And this came 30 years ago. But you can argue that this is one of the most important cars ever made. And a watershed moment for the automobile. What a wonderful machine. A piece of history that can still cut it today. So click the link to see Henry drive an amazing Ferrari Boxer that's also up for grabs at the RM Sotheby's auction. Evo will be streaming the auction live on May the 14th. It's time to start rifling through the back of the sofa and raiding your kids' piggybacks.